Good evening from Vietnam. Good morning to you, Deborah. Thanks a lot for spending your morning to join our program to share your wisdom to our audience. And on behalf of the listeners everywhere, we would love to say thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
And Deborah, when are you, Sophia, Sophia and your family going to travel to Vietnam?
That is a great question. Vietnam is on my top 5 list of places that I want to go next. So let's see what we can organize. I would love to come to Vietnam, maybe do a book tour in Vietnam.
Absolutely. And then if you travel to Vietnam, you make sure you let us know. We would love to be
Of
around when you
course.
travel. We've been able to see so many guests from other countries when they travel to Vietnam. They call us and we had coffee. We went out together. We met amazing people. So definitely we would love to take you and your family around. Okay.
I would love to be there. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, and for a little taste of our culture, we would love it, and you to share a little bit about who you are to our audience. That's such an honor for us in our culture here. So would you please do that for us?
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Deborah Grayson Riegel, and I am a speaker, workshop facilitator, executive coach, and writer. I focus on helping leaders communicate more effectively, whether that's presentation skills, storytelling, difficult conversations, including difficult conversations that you sometimes need to have with yourself.
Oh, wow. You have a beautiful journey that you introduce again to us in less than 1 minute. It's not fair for our audience. Okay. I'll travel time with you a little bit because the theme for today is about newness. So we're gonna go through a different period in time of your life to explore the newness and how it's evolved, and all transformation. So remember last time we had our first interview, you mentioned to us that you wanted to become a doctor when you were little to help people with paper cut and splinter. Out of everything
That
else
what a
you could.
great memory.
So out of everything that little young girl that could become, or any dream that she could have, why did you want to, become that specific doctor?
So, one of the things that interested me that I guess I'm still interested in are things that look small but feel disproportionately big. So, when you get a splinter or a paper cut, it looks tiny. Sometimes other people can't see it, but you know that it hurts. And
Mm.
so, I was always very mindful of sort of the empathy that comes along with I know it hurts even if I can't see it. And so I think now in my role as a coach, I help people articulate things that are hurting for them, even if other people can't see it, it feels big to them. And so I think that sense of empathy is a real through line in my career.
And I think it's it coming to full circle, even though you're not a doctor,
I'm not a
doctor,
doctor.
but the work that you do is helping, your clients, the leaders and managers to get better through the works that you're helping them, right? So it's
Yes,
beautiful. And
exactly right.
yes, and we want to understand, how did you evolve into becoming so many different hats that you're wearing, a columnist, a writer, a professor, a coach, everything. So that, and everything you do is very, very, very beautifully. So tell us,
Thank you.
what makes you to become, moving from the doctor to a different one, different path that you are having.
Yeah, so quite honestly, the thing that moved me off the path of being a doctor was organic chemistry. When I was in college, I realized very quickly that I was not going to do well at organic chemistry, and it wasn't interesting to me, and a bunch of the other hard sciences weren't particularly interesting to me. And so as a result, I said, well, let me see if I can study something that is still about helping people articulate pain, and it turned out to be psychology. So I got a degree in psychology. I went to graduate school for social work where I studied human behavior in a social environment, and then got introduced to the world through graduate school of training and staff development, and realized there was a way to do this on a professional level in a business context, not about therapy, but helping people who are working in organizations deal with pain, frustration, anxiety. And that was the shift that I made.
So why pain, anxiety?
I think because it's something that I have dealt with a lot in my life.
Would you
Yeah.
explain a little bit more about that for our audience?
Sure. Yeah, so I've had anxiety for my entire life growing up. I have generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, and a few other things going on. And so anxiety really has colored the way that I have seen the world. And I have a lot of empathy for people who have anxiety, whether their anxiety, there's a distinction between state anxiety and trait anxiety. Trait anxiety is what I have, which is you are wired to be anxious. State anxiety is you're not necessarily wired to be anxious, but there are certain situations like making a presentation or having a difficult conversation that make you anxious. And so I felt like my experience and my empathy could help me help other people navigate difficult situations in the workplace.
Oh, I did not even know that. So you enter into psychology to help other people at the same time to help you to understand
Yeah.
more about yourself also. Wow, thanks for
Yes.
sharing that. And
You're welcome.
over the years of working in this field and helping other people, how has that helping yourself in the process of understanding and solving your own problem with anxiety also?
Yeah, well, I think it has made me more compassionate towards myself. I feel very compassionate towards my clients. I treat them with a lot of caring and kindness and understanding, which are things that I haven't necessarily done for myself. And so when I realize that I can demonstrate care and kindness and compassion to someone else going through something similar, I remember that I can turn that lens and that framework to myself. So that's been really helpful.
Wow, wow. And last time we talked to you, you're the first person who joined our program, writing books together with your daughter. It's beautiful. I always remember that. And so when we do the research on the topic of newness, Vivian say, make sure we ask Professor Deborah if she could join and share her perspective on this angle. And so last year, my wife and I, we had some good free time. So we review all of the interviews that we had, and we tried to understand why amazing people, really amazing, and and could do the works
Mm.
that really awesome. And by then it's very easy where for each conversation that we drill down, there always a element of newness that really easily seen in all of the amazing people. They lean on to something new, they meet new people, they research new topic, they're not afraid of changing. Look at you,
Yeah,
you move from one topic to the next topic for your
that's
books,
right.
or and if you look at newness and you define it in your own word, how do you define newness, Deborah?
I define it as an experience I haven't had before. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's how I think about newness is something I haven't had before. Sometimes it's something I haven't thought about before, haven't practiced before, haven't tried before. And newness can be a very scary thing, but I tend to have a very experimental mindset. So this is my 21st year in business, and I just consider that I'm running a series of small experiments every day, and I embrace newness.
Wow. Uh, isn't it contradict in the way that you have some a history of being anxious about a lot of things in life, and
Yeah.
if you have that lens on, you have the lens of newness on, it sounds like it's hard for you to entering into newness, but for 20 something years you always have that experimental mindset of getting to something new and explore things. How did you do that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't think I've ever thought about that before. I think that I understand the question, which is there's something there that almost feels in conflict with each other, right? Having anxiety, so sort of, worrying about things happening and then trying a whole bunch of new things. I think that while I might be high in anxiety, I'm pretty low in fear, which are,
Oh.
not exactly the same thing in my mind. And so I don't operate from a lot of fear. I mean, I have, fears about things. I don't really want to, run into a snake, while I'm walking through the woods. And, but when it comes to my business, I don't operate from a lot of fear. I trust mostly, I would say 80% I trust that it's going to be okay and then I'm going to figure it out. And then I would say the other 20% is anxiety, concern, or worry. But the balance is higher on trusting that it will work out, or probably more importantly, that I will figure it out.
So what did you do to give you the comfortability that things are going to work out, and let's lean on to that 80% of what you know and figure out the 20% later?
Yeah, I think it's a few different things. So first of all, I invest a lot in my relationships. And so if you have really strong relationships, then you know that you've got resources available to you if something should go wrong. So knowing that I've got this unbelievable pool of resources available to me if something goes wrong helps me mitigate the anxiety. I also think that the confidence comes from experimenting over time and seeing that things have typically worked out, not always in the way that I envisioned, sometimes very differently from what I envisioned, but it took a path that was able to be productive and in most cases profitable. And I would say the third thing is faith in my abilities. So I believe that I'm smart. I believe that I'm capable. I believe in general, in a meritocratic approach, that if I put in the hard work, I will yield results. Not always, and not always the exact results that I wanted, but in general, I believe in a meritocracy.
So in your journey up until today, if you pick a moment that really transformed you and leading to the beautiful journey that you've been having up until today of doing so many new things, right? What was that moment of newness that leading to all of this transformation?
Yeah, I think one of the things that really stands out for me was in 2009 when the economic market crashed and my clients all went away. I didn't have any more paid clients because of the economic circumstances of 2009. And I was very worried that my business was failing. It was in fact failing. And I got a
Mm.
call from a colleague who had gotten a call from a colleague of hers who had been teaching executive communications at the Beijing International MBA program at Peking University in China. She needed to find a replacement to go over to China to teach, and I needed a job. I needed something to do to make money. And, I had two little kids at home. I had a husband at home. I had a whole, support system at home. But I ended up going to China for a month to teach executive communication skills. And it was, there was a lot of upheaval in my family about it, going away for a month with little kids at home. I don't speak any Mandarin whatsoever. This was completely new for me. I had never taught in a business school before, but I went. And I ended up going 5 semesters in a row, year after year after year, until it was no longer an economic necessity. And that was such a leap of faith and something that took me so out of my comfort zone. And when I came back after my last time teaching there, I got a call from another colleague that Wharton, which is one of the top business schools in the world, was looking for new instructors. And in particular, they were looking for instructors who had experience teaching non-native English speakers how to present in English. And I had just accrued all of this experience over my 5 semesters in Beijing, helping
Wow.
non-native English speakers present in English. And so I never could have anticipated that this would have opened the Wharton door for me, but it did. So I took on a very scary, overwhelming experience, and it ended up becoming one of the best professional moves of my career.
Bring me to the day. So you came to China, to Beijing or Shanghai? Beijing?
Beijing, yeah.
Alrighty. So bring me to the moment that you landed at the Beijing International Airport. And you know that you
Yeah,
knew back then that you're going to be there for 1 month teaching, your family is home, your two
yeah.
young kids are home. Everything at home is like, is even well taken care of, it misses you, right? So, uh, what went into your head at that moment, knowing your conditions, you're going to be there for a month and not
Yeah.
knowing anything going to be happening after that, right? So,
Yeah. So
give us.
I think the first thought that I had in my head was I'm doing this for my family, right? I was also very clear that I was doing it to my family, right? I was leaving them, but I'm doing this for my family. I needed to make money, so I'm
Mm,
doing this for my family. I think my second mindset was this could be an adventure. Hopefully, this could be an adventure. My third mindset was I'm not doing this alone, so I had somebody else who was going to be teaching with me. And so that was going to be very helpful that I had a resource on the ground, somebody also from the United States who was going to be doing this with me. And I think another mindset that I bring, for better or for worse, is what I call the escape hatch mindset, which is if there is an emergency, I can leave. Right?
ah,
I was hoping that there would not be an emergency, but if I absolutely had to leave, I had the resources to get out of there. And so that is often a very helpful way for me to think about something, that if I have to reverse course, I can.
and and with that three mindset that you had, and the escape had mindset, but it's nothing happening, and then every single day was a new day for you to explore something accumulated into your experience. What did your first trip teach you most about, the beauty of newness, and
Uh,
into the career of your life later? Yeah.
will you ask me that question one more time?
I asked about, by the end of the first semester, so the first 1 month,
Mm-hmm.
by the time
Yes.
you left Beijing and on the flight to America. So
Yeah.
how did that experience for that 1 month, had taught you to become, to the benefit of newness after that 1 month?
Yeah, well, I was very, very proud of my self-sufficiency. I was proud of my ability to learn, my flexibility, the fact that it was hard work and a lot of fun, right? That was a really important combination. I was so proud of how my family at home handled this. That's a lot of work for my husband and a long time for my kids to be away from me. And so I think my predominant feeling was pride.
Then you come back again the next semester. What made you come back for the next 4 semester consecutively?
Yeah, yeah. So number one, it was a financial decision. Number two, it was really fun. Number three, I was able to bring people with me. So I brought a friend, I brought my cousins, I brought my husband, I brought my kids. And so every time I went, I brought my mother-in-law. So every time I went, I was able to bring someone with me. And that allowed me to experience it newly again, right? Seeing China through my friend's eyes or through my kids' eyes, I felt I got to have it be new again, which I loved.
Oh, it's beautiful. The next trips that you came, you brought somebody with you to have that experience
Yes.
together. Wow. And by the time that Wharton looking for the program, looking for somebody who can teach, right? How did you feel for all of that 5 years, 5 consecutive semester, working in different
Yeah.
countries, now coming into, is that a matter of luck or is that a matter of hard work? What is that you define for that situation?
It is that 5 semester experience is part of my identity now, right? I became somebody who works internationally. Having had that experience of going to a place, going to, a country as different as it can possibly be, felt very, very core to who I am as an experimenter, an adventurer, somebody who challenges themselves. It is a very big part of my personal and professional identity, that experience.
Oh, before that, before the trip to China, were you travel internationally back then or no?
A little bit. So traveling a little bit internationally, but nothing like this. Nothing for extended periods of time to, any place this far away. And especially, I had gone to countries where people might assume that I am one of them. So, for example, in Spain, I could look Spanish. In Israel, I could look Israeli. I do not look Chinese. And so I was someplace where I was very visibly different and very audibly different because I didn't speak the language. I learned, a little bit while I was there, but it's also the newness of it being so evident that you are not one of them.
We build the newness framework, and the last two letters, the last two S, right? One of that is share your stories, and then the last one is shape into your future. So shape into your new identity, like you just say. After the 5 years of traveling,
Yeah.
it becomes a part of your identity.
Yes.
And that is hard because for years that you've been doing different things, and now for that you build a new version of Deborah, a new version of you're gonna serve internationally, you're gonna be known,
Yes.
across border. So what did you do in terms of stepping into your new self?
I think it is now hardwired into me to look for experiences like that. I'm sort of always comparing what I'm taking on to, does this feel like teaching in China? So a little bit I'm chasing that high of what that experience felt like, and also knowing that I'm really capable of big stretches and big opportunities and big challenges.
So it's a completely new you then.
Yeah, I think it was a completely new me as a
Uh,
result of it. Yes.
and then how do you feel about the new version of you?
Very proud.
Very proud. So
Very proud.
the writings and all the coaching happened after that or what?
Um, it all happened, let's see. No, I think some of it happened before and some of it happened after.
Ah, wow. All
Yeah.
righty.
Yeah.
You mentioned one word in this conversation that my wife and I always love hearing is the word I think. Okay, Deb,
Yeah.
and in every conversation that we and I had, we always ask our experts to share their practice to thinking to with the hope that whoever listen to conversation like this will be able to listen, reflect, and take something out of this conversation to learn for themselves and apply. So, Deborah, how have you been expanding your ability to think?
I want to think about that for a minute.
Wow.
I've been expanding my ability to think by being conscious of my mindsets and of how my mindsets impact my emotions and impact my behaviors. I I I think one of the things that really expanded my thinking was that our family moved. We relocated from New York, where we lived for decades and decades and generations and generations. I mean, my husband and I both come from generations of New Yorkers. And so moving from New York to North Carolina completely changed the environment in which we live. And when you live in a completely new environment, you have to change the way you think or you're going to be stuck and you're going to be miserable.
Mm.
And recognizing that now at age 54, I'm moving into a new chapter in my life as I think about the role of work maybe taking up a little less space in my life and other things taking up more space. And that requires me to rewire my brain yet again.
Wow. And Now we're going to talk about your book, your newest one.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Because that also another topic of new thing that coming along the horizon that you share this time. So the book is Aim High and Bounce Back, right? It's about
Yes.
failure. So why failures?
So I why failure? So I spent my teenage years, my young years and my teenage years fearing failure. I was, as I mentioned earlier, I had, grew up with incredible anxiety. I was always fearing getting anything less than an A or 100 or great feedback from a teacher. I did competitive speech and debate, and I feared anything other than winning first place. And that anxiety was really, really painful. The fear of failure was really paralyzing in many ways. And I realized that as I got older and accrued more experiences with things that felt like failures, even though inevitably things worked out, they felt like failures, and I was able to tolerate them more. They were more manageable for me, and the more failures that I had, the more I was able to see them as a natural part of having an experimental approach to work and life. But I realized that there are plenty of adults, and the book is written specifically by women for women who have a
Mm.
much different relationship with failure than men do. So women tend to personalize it more, catastrophize more, ruminate more. And I know that there are a lot of grown women who feel like how I felt when I was a teenager, which is terrified of any possible failure. And so we wanted to write a book that was helpful to them.
And for that many years, why are you waiting for this long to write the book about the topic that been with you when you were little for so long? I bet it's
Yeah.
been in your ideas for long. So
Yeah, well, this is my 10th book, so I had other topics that had to come first. So I got to it as soon as the time was right for me. I tend to trust the process of timing, and so there were other books that I needed to get out of me before I could write this one.
wow. And tell us, like how long did it take in the whole process of writing and publishing that?
Yeah, so it took about 2.5 years. I have a co-author. And
Oh,
so between, our drafts and our research, we ended up surveying 1,100 women across 60 countries to
wow.
understand their experience of failure. And so from sort of the first conversation about writing this together until the book was published was about 2.5 years. So I've been
Wow.
thinking about this topic for a long time.
I thought in this book you wrote with Sophia, but you wrote with somebody else. So
No,
uh
not this one.
huh.
Yeah, not this one. And in fact, it's interesting. I asked Sophie if she wanted to write this book with me, and her response was, I haven't ever failed at anything big in my life, so I don't think I'm a credible resource for this book. And I said, go out and fail, because if you don't fail, the anxiety about failure is going to paralyze you. So go run a bunch of experiments, go fail at a bunch of things, and report in. I hope it's a really good learning experience. So I ended up writing the book with a co-author who has experienced her own failures and successes, and also teaches entrepreneurship at Georgetown. And so she knows how to teach entrepreneurs how to fail and bounce back.
Deborah, you told Sophia to go out and try a bunch of things and fail and had the feeling of failure. How it
Yes.
is? Okay, that's strange. I never heard of that. So explain more to our audience, would you?
Yeah, so, as I mentioned, when I was a teenager, and I have my daughter is wired very much the way I am, I was so scared of failing that I just lived my life in total anxiety. And if you don't fail, you don't learn how to fail well, and how to bounce back, and to know that a failure isn't something permanent. And so I wanted her to learn how to bounce back from failure, which you can't do if you haven't failed.
Wow. So if who's the audience for this book, Deborah?
So the book is, it's interesting. Our intended audience was to have it be for women, women of any age, but, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, stuff like that. And, the book's only been out a couple of weeks, but the number one piece of feedback that I'm getting is readers who say, I am buying a copy for my daughter. So we are finding that people want their young women, their teenagers, their daughters in their 20s to read this book because they're recognizing that as moms or grandmas, that they had such a fraught relationship with failure, perfectionism, procrastination, that they realize that they may have passed down some of those beliefs and behaviors to their kids, and they want their daughters to have a very different relationship with this topic.
If you would give this book to one person in your life to read and to really, leave the principle that you share in this book, who's that person is going to be?
I would give it to my 13-year-old self.
Okay, now.
Yeah.
Bring me travel time to meet your 13 years old self.
Yeah.
What happened at that age that out of many people you met in your life, now you want to give that book for that little girl?
Yeah. So that young woman was such a perfectionist, was in physical pain from anxiety taking over her body, would spend her nights up crying because she hadn't studied enough for a test. Her paper wasn't perfect enough. She had to redraft something to get it from an A to an A plus. She could hardly breathe because of the anxiety, and I would want her to have a very, very different relationship with understanding that it is okay not to be perfect. It's okay to get it wrong, that it isn't going to be on your permanent record for the rest of your life if you don't do something perfectly. I would want her to lower her shoulders from her ears and just breathe a little bit and have some perspective.
That's why your first feedback is like parents buying it for their daughters. Isn't it beautiful? If we can intervene and show them a different way of thinking, of living, right? The last question for this conversation. Okay. Sure. Yeah. If you can pick one chapter in the book to share with our audience so that we can learn with you and celebrate with you, and then the book, what is that topic, Deborah?
Yeah, I think if I were going to pick any part of the book, the thing that I've gotten a lot of feedback about is that failure is not one size fits all. We actually talk about 5 different kinds of failure in the book. So concrete failure, circumstantial failure, identity failure, paralysis failure, and perceived failure. And we have heard from so many people that recognizing that it's not just failure, but there are all these different nuances around failure that can then help us figure out the nuances of how to bounce back. That would be the chapter I would recommend.
Wow. And the last question, I'm trying to pull my head together to ask you the last question. I think we are facing with a lot of change that beyond our imagination, with AI, with quantum computing, with a lot of things on the horizon. And all of that, the experience, the failures, that may not be something that any of us might experience before, right? So how would this book will help the pupil to come into the unknown and maybe embrace unforeseeable failures and bounce back? That part of bouncing back is important. So that, would you please explain more on that for us?
Yeah, so I think the key takeaway from the book is that failure is a necessary ingredient to success, but only if you learn how to bounce back from failure successfully. So understanding that when we have a failure, We need to grieve what we've lost, lost expectations, lost hopes, lost identity, that we need to gather the resources that we have around us, the people that we count on, gather helpful mindsets, gather helpful perspectives, and that then we need to go again with these new lessons behind us, and not overthink it, but get back into, get back on the court, go down the water slide, just start moving.
Wonderful. I say that we have two last questions, but I forgot that I promised my wife to ask a bizarre question for every conversation.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So I just want to know how a day for Deborah looks like.
Well, today is a perfect day. So I got up early. I just came back from London, so I'm a little jet lagged, but I got up early. I hung out with my dog. I did some New York Times crossword puzzles. I watched the news. When we get off today, I'm going to go have a workout with my trainer. And then I've got 3 big webinars this week, so I'm going to prepare for those big webinars. And I have some coaching calls today. And then, for a really good day, I'll be in pajamas by 5 o'clock and relax with my husband for the rest of the evening.
Beautiful, beautiful. Deborah, thank you so much for
my pleasure.
Spending time to join us. I would love to give you that 13 years old Deborah a hug if I could travel time, but instead I'm looking forward for the opportunity for us to meet in person. I'm gonna give everyone from your family a big hugs and show you around our beautiful country. Okay?
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a beautiful day. Say hello to your family first. Thank you very much for everything that you do to help other people.
Okay, bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.